Madam Vice President.
Thank you. Come on, go. This way. Go. This way.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. This way. This way. This way.
Thanks so much.
This way.
Heading out this way.
Folks, this way.
Thank you.
What the hell is that?
Now, I don't want to toot my own horn here, but everything we've been saying on this channel has been coming true. Kamala Harris's poll numbers are starting to drop and being reflected in the polls. And this, of course, has Democrats in full-blown panic mode. There is a reason Kamala Harris is staying in the basement. There's a reason she's not out there giving press conferences, and that is because every time she appears in public, every time she tries to speak off the cuff and answer questions, everyone sees how incompetent she is and how radical her views actually are. So as we've been talking about, a few of these polls have been coming out. The latest, of course, over here from the Daily Mail, showing Kamala Harris to be losing to Donald Trump 251 to 287. Now, this is the first major outlet to be expressing these types of results that hasn't been considered right-leaning, but more are sure to follow, as some information, of course, has been trickling out already. So what we're going to see here is a little bit of MSNBC going into full-blown meltdown mode, and we can all just sit back and enjoy. So before we get to the clips, please like and comment so we can break through the algorithms. Here we go.
The 4 years he was in office, we were doing good, absolutely good. You know, Kamala, she's already in office and ain't done. And, you know, I mean, there was more work too. We were able to afford things.
What are the issues that move you towards Trump and move you and your community towards Donald Trump?
Well, mainly as the transgender and also the abortion right.
And you would say most of your community is choosing Donald Trump because of that?
Yes. Yes. The majority, yes.
Trump's rehashing of his race-baiting rhetoric comes as a new NBC News, Telemundo, and CNBC poll shows that Harris has a 14-point lead over Trump among Latino voters, 54% to Trump's 40%. And yes, that's a big lead, but it's a shrinking one. Down from what might seem like a big lead, it's a shrinking one because President Biden had a 36-point lead in 2020, and Hillary Clinton had a 50-point lead in 2016. Why is that? Why is the Democratic share of the Latino vote shrinking?
And what I said to you when we asked the question was, Latinos want to be white. They want to be with the cool kids. They want to be, I'm asking Latinos all the time, and they just say, well, ese Donald Trump es tan buen negociante. He's such a good businessman. It's like, no, he's not. He had bankruptcies. But they don't want to be identified with all of those other immigrants that Donald Trump speaks so badly of, including me as a Mexican immigrant. So they're like, let's be with him. But those numbers, they could cost Kamala Harris the election. Everything that I've been saying that Latinos could push her over the top, these are the numbers that could also take her down. I.e., they believe that she is a communist, that she is a socialist. There are these memes going around with her dressed in a Mao Zedong suit with a cap that has a hammer and sickle. So that's what you're up against right now. And frankly, that's something that she has to address, not Governor Walz. She ultimately has to address this because these images that they have created are actually taking off.
Why do the left continuously see everything through the lens of race, right? And if you don't agree with them, you're no longer part of that race, apparently, right? All these Latino voters out there going for Donald Trump, oh, they want to be white. I can't think of anything more ridiculous. Most people are actually proud of their heritage, but of course, you can't be that and a Republican at the same time. So this is completely insane. And yes, people are worried, and rightly so, about Kamala Harris being a socialist communist because she has those tendencies, right? She's talking about price controls. She's talking about tamping down on free speech. She's talking about taking away your Second Amendment, right? That is what she represents. And all these Latino Hispanic voters who may have some ancestry coming from some of these socialist countries, they're none too happy about it. And yes, I love how they brought up at the beginning of that segment. Yeah, it's a lot of the transgender issues, a lot of the abortion rights issues, a lot of the things that traditional Hispanics really don't agree with the left with at all. Imagine they're coming around and seeing the truth because it's finally being revealed to them. So I love seeing the panic in their eyes as they come to the realization that the very people they've been relying on, courting for the last 30 years in this country, are now turning on them because they've revealed themselves to be the dyed-in-the-wool red commie leftists they've always been. It's beautiful. All right, but let's go ahead and check out some of these numbers breakdowns over on CNN.
One of many elements that we'll be looking at this morning, you know, sometimes there are data points that just jump off the screen, should set off sirens. All right, this is union households, this is the Democratic margin in presidential election. It ain't what it used to be. You know, you go back to 1992, Bill Clinton won that union vote by 30 points. Hillary Clinton only won it by 12 points back in 2016. That was the lowest mark for a Democrat since 1984, Mondale versus Reagan. But look at where Kamala Harris is today. She's only leading by 9 points. That would be the worst Democratic performance in a generation, 10 points off the mark of Joe Biden, who, of course, won 4 years ago, was sort of that union guy, Union Joe, right? Won it by 19 points. She's 10 points off his mark, and the worst in a generation if this, in fact, holds, Sarah.
It is interesting to note that the difference between this, and Biden still won.
Still won.
But those numbers are significantly down. All right, talk to me about manual labor, those folks who went to trade schools.
Yeah, those folks who use their hands. I think a lot of people oftentimes conflate the union vote with those who use their hands. Mike Rowe, of course, has been arguing more people should go to trade schools, more people should get a vocational degree. Look at this margin. This, to me, oh boy, does this tell you about the state of our politics now versus back in the early 1990s. Margin among vocational and trade school grads in pre-election polling. Bill Clinton was leading that vote over George H.W. Bush by 7 points. Look at where Donald Trump is today over Kamala Harris, a 31-point advantage. When I think people think of the working class, they think of people who use their hands, and we know that Donald Trump has been going after that vote, and he is in a very strong position, more so perhaps than any other bloc. The folks who go to trade school, vocational school, that has moved from being a core Democratic group to now being a core group of Donald Trump's massive amount of support among the working class.
All right, let's move on to voters of color. And there's a very specific group that you looked at. And what are you seeing there?
Yeah, you know, we've been noting on this program, right, that Donald Trump seems to have been having some real impact among voters of color, getting into that traditional Democratic support. And I was very interested to see this because we're talking about the working class, right? So this is the margin among non-college graduates, all right, the voters of color. You go back 4 years ago, look at that. Joe Biden won that group by 45 points. Look at where Kamala Harris's support is today. She's still leading amongst that group, but that lead is down 17 points to just 28 points. And I will note that the margin among voters of color who actually graduate college has only been changed by 5 points. 5 points compared to 4 years ago. The reason Donald Trump is doing so well amongst voters of color is because he has really gone in and grabbed a lot of voters that he didn't previously have among those who didn't graduate college. And this is part of a larger trend that we're seeing throughout our politics era, in which Republicans, specifically Donald Trump, is doing very well among working class voters, whether they were in unions, whether they went to trade school, or whether they're voters of color. The fact is Donald Trump seems to have gone into a hotbed of traditional Democratic support and made a lot of movement in ways I don't think a lot of people would have thought when he went down that escalator just back in 2015.
So the days of the Democrats supposedly representing the working class are over. They have gone all in on identity politics. They don't care about people's paychecks anymore. All they care about is taxing you as much as possible to give the most benefits they can to the new marginalized groups as possible. And in the meantime, all those hardworking Americans who went to trade schools, who work with their hands, and they're seeing all their tax dollars being pissed away on illegal immigrants and worthless kids' college degrees. Okay, and of course that brings them over to Donald Trump, over to the Republican Party. And I hope we can keep this up because this is truly wonderful to see. So thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, share, comment, subscribe, and stay safe out there, people, because they're coming after you.